and I will call in Craig.
Hold on, let me turn my, oops. I'm going to turn my video off.
Okay.
Now recording.
Welcome to the YangGang Roundtable. It is 2:11 p.m., January 9th, 2021, with Ariel, Feidoni, Feiku, Kaizen, Mia Songbird, Moto, Hannah Wan, and myself here. We're all basic income advocates, and we are here to talk about poverty, basic income, and electoral politics. Thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you for listening and watching. Big news week, so let's just go get into it. Who would like to begin?
Hannah, she was doing so much incredible work out in Georgia, and I think we should celebrate her a little bit. So you want to talk about what you've been doing there, Hannah?
Yeah, sure. It's nice to see everybody again. Haven't been on for a while. But yeah, I just got back from Georgia yesterday. I was there for almost 2 months. I was there like mid-November doing voter registration. And then after voter registration was over, I moved on to do canvassing for Asian communities with Asian American Advocacy Fund, PAC. And that was really great. Just working with a local organization and also helping out Humanity for Georgia with some of their events. They had some letter writing parties for people to, write to Georgians and just make a little party out of it. And they did some interesting art installations and they did this cool thing with early voting where as people were coming out the early voting locations, they would sign somebody's car. And so there was this art car essentially going around with little messages. That was really cool. But yeah, it was really great being on the ground and doing good work and talking to voters down there. Even on election day, we were canvassing that morning and asking if people were planning on going out to vote today. And surprisingly, there were. So I was able to catch a few people with that. So yeah, it went really well. We won. It's been amazing.
I'm so happy we're out there. I mean, if anyone was going to change the Senate, you definitely helped move the needle in the right direction. That is, I recognize your work, so thank you.
Sure. I'm just so frustrated that all that got overshadowed by the riots. It's like the election ends that morning, and it's like, oh, we're going to talk about that. And it's like, oh, look, President Lunatic McNutbag.
Looking at this corruption index that they have, right? And it kind of has a scale of yellow to red for how corrupt it is, right? And they started doing it back in 2012, right? The whole world has darkened a little, okay, since 2012. And I'm sure it's going to get even more darker. But most places around the world are corrupt. And that blows my mind. And just even the people we've had on that we talked to in other countries, even their government's corrupt. It is crazy how corrupt politicians are, guys. It's bad.
That's why we need an ethics test and psychology test before we allow anybody to even run for president.
Well, I mean, we have to raise the freaking bar over here. It's the bar is deeper than the Marianas Trench right now. It's in a negative, thing. It's. I think that if we set the bar at someone like Ossoff and Warnock for all upcoming ones, that's the thing. It's we never want to go back to what we just had. Literally, what we just had a few days ago. like that thing. If we're lucky that what the president is a buffoon, because if he wasn't a buffoon, if he was more intelligent and he could hide what he really wanted and do it in a more intelligent way, we'd already be living in a dictatorship right now. We'd already have full blown fascism, because but we're lucky that he's not really good at this, because if we had someone who was good at this, it would be over.
Way better than we're giving them credit for, Ariel.
It's really, the Democrats have the power to lose at this point if the Democrats do nothing for the common people and people's lives do not en masse improve in quality. Almost any Republican will be able to win an election. So, that's how the game of you lose, I lose works. That's how the duopoly keeps on. So that's usually how it goes.
Biden promised.
I think that Trump is leaving a big psychic scar, though, that might be a little hard for the GOP to just flip-flop on. I think that it might...
You're right. They can go two ways. Either they can go for the Trump people, again, with Trump himself again, or like a Trump-like or a Trump-light, I don't know. Or they can try to return to ye old traditional Republican Party, which is, also villainous, but different. More establishment, much more similar to the Democrats. So I don't know. They could try to go that way, but they'll be splitting the party either way. So that's kind of the bet. That's the problem they're going to have. So the Democrats will be able to be very, very negligent and give us almost nothing. If they give us even a shred of something, we'll go like, "Oh, Democrats, they gave us something. We'll vote for them," because the Republicans are a party that's going to be split in half for the next few cycles, I think.
I don't think that's true.
No, they're kind of split into a Trump. They're kind of split into an establishment and Trump camp. I think that's my perspective from outside.
A third party rise, but I don't think it necessarily has to come out of the Republican thing. I think it can just grab people from both sides who are unhappy with the current thing and create its own dogma if it's smart.
Well, the thing is, Trump overshadowed all the UBI candidates running in 2020, basically, with all of his, antics and carnival barking and all this, BS. So 2021 comes around. People are still not happy. They're pissed off. We don't have a UBI. In 2022 is a better chance now with Trump out.
I think we need to ask, why do we not have the money? Okay. I came across some stuff that was quite disturbing in my research yesterday, guys. And I stayed up till 5 a.m. just freaking out about what I found. Okay. I found a person that literally has the ability to fabricate everything that we're dealing with right now. And I'm sure they're just one person, right, of this whole thing. And they own AI, they own cancer research, they own their own nonprofit, their net worth is in the billions, they own the media, they have a politician in their pocket, they have all of the perfect recipe for the biggest amount of money as long as everyone stays poor, right? Because where does cancer come from? Cancer comes from people in poverty turning to excessive coping mechanisms, right? What is cancer but excessiveness, essentially, right? And I was doing some research on cancer, and they're like, well, smoking's not even doing as much as food now, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, smoking, you smoke more if you're stressed, right? You eat more if you're stressed, right? And then all the trauma that's associated with all of this, right? It's we had Jeffrey Epstein, who caused trauma to a lot of people, which equals automatic responses, right? You're stuck in a trauma loop and you keep re-traumatizing yourself. And when you're in poverty, your IQ goes down, right? So now, these are nothing new that I've been bringing up, right? But this person has AI technology and also keeps getting a lot of grant money for cancer research. Okay. I think their net worth was $6 billion or something. Okay.
Is he in Alabama of all places? Or
no.
Okay.
No.
I'm like, what?
And I have and ironically, they're also the creator of this vaccine we have. One of the creators of one of the vaccines.
Did you met this person or
No. I stumbled upon them based on someone else's accusations. And I started researching and digging into this person They had an article by the newspaper they own talking about buying a hospital with a company they own. They involved a politician, I've been told, that is in their pocket, right? That made someone else back out of a deal. And then their third thing that they had was coming in there too. But their one article had 3 different angles to make them look like they had credentials in order to purchase a hospital like this because of the pandemic, right? And they're like, we don't want to go this fast. We don't want to sell this thing so quickly, right? And they're like, but the pandemic. Okay. This particular person has red flags all around them. And, like, it would benefit them if everyone stayed in poverty, that nobody got universal basic income. And I don't think the Democrats are going to save us, because the person that this source gave me is on the Democratic Party high up, and like, let's just talk about Biden for just a half second. Biden makes tons of money off of for-profit prisons, okay, right? And like, if he, has everybody in poverty, what does poverty equal but desperation and crime? This man is also meant to bank a lot off of this pandemic, especially if people can't go to work. And this tribalism that's been fueling, this distraction technique, has moved us away from any of the solutions that we absolutely must use. And, what we're trying to do is fight for universal basic income, right? That's what we want, right? We see that as the solution. We've got proof that, poverty is the cause of the cancer, right? In a lot of ways, and I've done research, and you don't have to believe me. Do your own research. That's fine. But, like, this is a big red flag. And like all the other research is also pointing us towards a civil war. What is the after effects of a civil war, right? These are things we have to think about. Why are they continuing it towards a civil war? Because people make money off of war, right? Everybody's making money off of us, and we're not going to see a penny. Or at least that's what I fear. Even with all this work that we're doing, I'm a little afraid it's not enough, and I don't know what equals enough, right? But there's a lot of people standing to make a significant amount of money off of this pandemic. And that can't happen.
Well, obviously.
We can't happen. Not for my nieces and nephew, not for your guys' family, yourselves, your future. Like, it's glum, but
here's the thing, like, we gotta climb to the top of some kind of like a clout ladder, and we gotta do it freaking fast. Elon Musk is Yang, he supported Yang, he supported UBI. Now it's really time to put his money where his mouth is. Elon Musk's net worth has just surpassed Jeff Bezos. So all of the YangGang has to go to Elon Musk and say, like, look, are you like being real with us, or are you just faking all this crap for your support for like a better future? Like, before we can get to Mars and like build little space colonies there, it's not going to mean anything if, like, people are like if Earth is dying. And the thing is like, what is this, space stuff? I don't know if any of you saw the movie Elysium. Everybody's like, oh, cool, everyone's going to Mars. How do we know, like they don't want to just escape the hell on Earth that they're going to create and go to space? Like that's the thing, where like all the privileged people are like cordoned off, and then everybody else is suffering. Like, we gotta see what's going on. So the thing is that Elon Musk has to really like jump in this whole thing, and hopefully like put some of his money towards some kind of UBI. Because if you have more money than Jeff Bezos right now, you have the power to really be big in this movement. And if you don't want to,
can I ask how we get Elon Musk to do anything from our position Just curious,
No.
how do we get Elon Musk to do anything?
Not our position, but the thing is, it's like I know that Tom from Nerds for Yang is like gonna be on there, and Tom has access to Anthony Scaramucci and Anthony Scaramucci. So it's not like directly; it's this 6 degrees of separation that like this person knows that person, and that person might know this person might know that person. So that we have to look if like we can strategize away from these 6 degrees of separation kind of thing to
No,
get
we
the
need
attention.
to move away from relying on individuals. It's like, yes, like we have to stop relying on I don't know, the gracious nature of billionaires. We need to mobilize. We need to do grassroots. We got to build up our power from the local level on up, and make it really solid so that we can change the system to, who cares what the billionaires do if we force them to do something by creating policies
Of course, but
that,
that's going to
yeah,
take way too much time.
dude, that's what we
Definitely.
have to do. If we try to keep trying to do shortcuts, we're not going to get anything done, and we haven't gotten anything done.
So I
So
think
you got to do the work, and you got to invest the time to build up grassroots at the local level.
what we need is to make sure we build up grassroots fundraising for the activists trying to make the change, who see the problems, who want to do things, that live in poverty. I think, these are the people we should be empowering because they're very passionate, right? The passion's going to fuel the fire within, right? We got all these other people suffering and maybe complaining, that's great. We should definitely work on getting them support as well. But just like these politicians that we've uplifted, right? We could do that with our own people. We don't need a campaign. We don't need a presidency to make that happen. We just need the motivation to do it ourselves, right? But that means we have to switch our strategy. If we are stuck with politicians, a big thing like what Hannah's doing was like getting people in who actually want to make change, right? But it's easy to get corrupted once you get in there too. That's something we must be aware of, right? But the thing is, people, when they get in there, they're not trained, right? They're not trained to recognize the manipulation tactics, the slow grooming into this decision that they don't want to do. I mean, we have studies that prove that other people can convince you to kill somebody. There's a whole thing, right? And if we have studies to convince that we can murder because we convince someone to do it, what else could we convince them to do without them knowing? Especially if they're trauma driven, especially if you can get attacked by citizens, right? That's only going to put you at a heightened panic mode, and then you're even more manipulatable, right? So it's very, there's got to be a better way, and I don't think
So this is another reason why we need to stop relying on individuals. So yes, I helped Ossoff and Warnock get elected to the Senate, but I'm not. So that's just the beginning of the work. It's not just they're in, we trust them. It's no, we're in now. We have a stake in pressuring them to do what we need, and this is why we need to build up support at the grassroots level to have millions of people yelling at our government, at our elected officials to say, hey, we elected you to do this. We expect you to do this. And so to counteract some of the insider pressure to be corrupted, we have to continue to pressure them at a grassroots level. It's this is what our community needs.
We gotta rile up crowds, but do it for the right reasons.
No. It's not about riling up crowds. It's about consistent pressure.
And
it's not saying, yeah, exactly. And work and building up stronger communities. So we all know what each other needs, what our neighborhoods need, and communicating that consistently to our elected officials so they know what they need to prioritize, or they will be elected out.
I just posted in the live stream chat a link to the basic income phone bank that they're going to be doing. They want to get 100,000 calls to Congress to pressure them for recurring stimulus checks. So that is something that you can do that will influence things if enough people call. Not necessarily right away, but we weren't going to get $600 checks either. So we do change things.
I feel like they're digging us around, and they're going to keep digging us around until we've had collapse. And then they're going to swoop in and grab all of our resources that we have worked so hard for. All the people that we love and care about are going to end up crazy.
That is a possibility. That's why we work even harder. That's why I can't sleep at night sometimes.
Yeah, that's how capitalism is designed. So yeah, it's
Cap-
nothing new. It's
Designed at making tons of money off the 7 deadly sins. That's what it boils down to. Like, you want to be rich, you better sell one of these sins, right? And like, but figure out how to like do the whole circle, the whole phases of life of this deadly sin, right? You know, like make people stressed. That makes them go to coping mechanisms. That makes them impulsively buy. That makes them stupid. Like whatever their equation is, it's a circle, right? We just feed back into it. That we almost have to be able to improve as a person before even doing any of this, and that's impossible with the way the like government is set up for us right now. I don't know. I'm worried that our strategy needs to shift and it needs to be a little more powerful. And I think, you know, like that means individual YangGang members need to like, oh, are you really good at clipping a video? How about we get that documentary out about the Yang media blackout and get that into people's like views, you know, sit down with somebody and watch it with them. Be like, hey, guess what? I was there. I was in that room. I went to that event. Oh, I met that person, you know, have these conversations with people while sitting them down and talking to them, get them excited because they're like, I did that yesterday. I watched it with my roommate, right? My roommate, he doesn't know much about Yang. He never heard about Yang until I just like, you know, showed up here, right? And it was a long movie, right? It's 2 hours. He doesn't have that attention span. I barely have that attention span, right? So we have to take what people have created and evolve it, evolve, right? But people need to see that Yang was blacked out because that's where the corruption actually happened. It was not all this smokes and mirrors. You know, the magician intentionally distracts you and makes you think you're going the right direction, right? That you are the one who knows what's going on. But it's just a distraction, right? We are the reality, right? We are not the distraction. But how do we change that?
right. So yeah, that issue of the media blackout. So so my first foray into politics was actually Ron Paul 2008. So yeah, I remember the same thing happening to Ron Paul, and then same thing happening to Bernie in 2016, and then also Yang. So yeah, it's absolutely reoccurring. And so I think if we're able to like if a documentary were to come out about the Yang media blackout, I think it should cover like the history of it, like going back to Ron Paul and even maybe before that, you know.
Solution. I think these things already exist of pointing out these media blackouts. Like even just Bernie's blackout that he had was documented, and it's even on Netflix somewhere, right? Or it was. And then maybe we get video editors to come in and chop up these little bits and be like, look, this fucking system is rigged and we're done with it, right? Because now we're heading towards a civil war and you guys are definitely behind it. Like, we're not blind. Everyone knows corruption exists within politics, even in other countries. Like, we gotta pay attention to the media.
Well, I think that part of the grassroots stuff that I think we haven't tried are some of the things that I remember from my childhood. Things like Hands Across America, which was this national event. And what was that about? Hunger? I don't even remember what it was about, but I remember it being this huge grassroots organized thing that was about unity and solidarity. And I haven't seen anything close to that since. Occupy maybe came close, but that Occupy was blacked out in the media as well. If anybody heard about it, they showed pictures of not the cops macing the protesters, but the protesters doing things. And like people didn't understand what was going on. And even the people that were protesting Occupy were like, we've got to do something. What do we do? Well, we know how that ended because that got shut down.
Well, the thing about Occupy is they didn't systematically change things either.
No.
right?
Occupy is one part of a larger story. So Occupy led to Bernie and then Bernie led to Yang for me. So it's all part of a story. You can't just look at an isolated event. It was all part of an arc. So I feel like even Occupy was influenced by Ron Paul, and at least the Tea Party and how that happened.
The amazing part about Occupy to me, and it's reflected in YangGang, is that Occupy drew people from every single walk of life, every color, every political affiliation. It was about, at least in Kansas City, we were parked in front of the Federal Reserve building that's here in Kansas City, and it went to the heart of what happened in the fallout of 2008. And a lot of people who were there were directly affected by the bank crashes and everything that happened in 2008. We were still feeling those repercussions because the stimulus that we were given then wasn't enough. And we knew it because we saw it go to Wall Street. We saw it be reflected in the Dow and the NYSE and NASDAQ and all of that. We saved their gambling system rather than holding them accountable, which is what other nations did to their banks who did the same, similar and the same things with them there. And so this speaks to the heart too of what, Faye, what you're saying is that there are individual people, about 400,000 of them, control 98% of the world's wealth one way or another. And it's because they're part of the banking system. They're part of the World Bank. They're part of all insurance, which is nothing but gambling. You're gambling with statistics.
I never thought about insurance as part of that. I'm writing that down. So, okay, I wrote a few things that seem like leads into this corruption we're facing, right? The IRS, any mental health services that are not, well, okay, the mental health services is not quite there, but okay, media and the news, banks, energy, food, pharma, jails, scammers, politicians, schools, insurance, and nonprofits. I think these are all places we need to be looking at as how are they interconnected in just driving this corruption machine that has been growing in strength and size. It feeds back into itself. They figured out a whole system that works in their favor, and they have the technology and knowledge and the buddy system, to pull it off. They have the military, right? Like, we look out for each other, even though you didn't do a good thing. High-end universities. Well, I'm sorry you did that shitty thing to that person, but we got your back, right? It's the club. And it's dangerous to all of us.
That's why UBI is so important, because it evens out that club mentality quite a bit. But
that's what
I don't know what we can do about
said.
it in any sort of immediate sense. The only thing that we can do about it is continue to, one, spread the word so that other people are aware of it, and two, continue to replace these bought and held politicians with better politicians. Or something more dramatic, but that would probably end as well for us as it did for the Trumpites. So,
All right.
So I'm a performer here in Kansas City. I've done spoken word and other similar, kind of variety show sort of stuff, on and off through most of my adult life. And when I was engaged in protesting in DC, I realized the spectacle of it all is what draws people in, right? That people are attracted to spectacle, either as observers or as participants. And I think that's part of what canvassing and doing the rallies and stuff like that. Why are people going to rallies without masks in the middle of a pandemic? Because they're isolated and alone, and they have no peace inside of them, and they have forgotten or lack enough of that creative energy to put back into the world. They don't have a ground to them, and so they're drawn to the spectacle again, and then people with power use the spectacle as the controlling. That's the brainwashing. That's the cult-like thing. That's where you start excluding people. And I've been wondering why isn't the left, not Democrat, but people who are on the side of equality, right? Of egalitarianism, of restructuring it so that, and it's not about people can't be successful. It's about it's about being reasonable, not being a dick. Like, really? I mean, I think sometimes it boils down to people are just dicks. I mean, maybe I shouldn't use that word. I'm sorry. Because that's kind of sexist, and I don't mean it that way. But I am a feminist, and the people guilty predominantly are men. So this is where I want to call the toxic masculinity out of. Where's your piece, sir?
I want to point out just one thing, though, about the men and their ego thing. Sometimes they're doing it because of a woman. I'm not gonna because I remember watching this video.
For sure.
Yeah, like it was like this male politician with like the greatest building ever, beautiful, and his wife was decked out.
That as a man, it's like, and the men who aren't the dicks and the men who actually are the decent human beings are overshadowed by these assholes. Are like, like, think of Yang. Think of, like, you never met a more decent human being man than Yang, but all the stupid asshole men were always interrupting him, never giving him time, never letting him speak, literally.
I think it's really important to try, like, when you're judging an individual, if you're talking about trends among people, sure, you can find things that are pretty normal. But when you're talking about individual people, like, thinking about them from that dynamic is completely useless, because we're all somewhere on the spectrum of all that stuff. And you're not going to, like, be able to pin down a person in one conversation and really understand them fully just because you found the right label for them. So, it's really important that we, like, not, even if we're aware of stereotypes, we try not to use them in our day-to-day lives. You know what I mean? I don't know if that made any sense.
I know for myself, I don't believe. Okay, so when somebody talks about men this, men that, the issue of toxic masculinity, and the response is, well, not all men. That's bullshit. Because for me, a good man is not somebody who merely exists as a nice guy, but somebody who actively fights against it. So if you talk to somebody and said, oh, the patriarchy does this, like, men do these harmful things, and I only trust them if they say, yes, you're absolutely right, and this is what I'm doing to fight against it in my circle, in my influence.
Makes sense. I mean, accountability is something that we have to definitely start encouraging more of. So when somebody claims to do something, if they aren't putting actions towards those words, then yeah, you could probably write off that claim, unless it's anything more than just, oh yeah, I'm for that. But
right. Like once these people get in that we elect, and they, like, all their promises are nonsense. I mean, like, there has to be, because, like, I mean, when you order a package, you have, like, a tracking number, but when someone who's got elected makes a promise, like, we need to have a tracking number too. It's like, okay, where are we on that promise? Like where, like when you look at the tracking number and you see that, like, it's on the way and each step gives you updates, it's like, we need a tracking number for the promise. It's like, how many actions did you take towards that promise that you promised? And if we see that it hasn't been delivered, we get a refund, and maybe that refund works as in, like, you're not getting reelected. and then like, but then, yeah, the other person who comes next can just do the same thing. Yeah.
When I was working with the Green Party, we were pitched a really beautiful blockchain voting app by some independent developers, and so that actually is very possible, because the way that they were designing it is that you could track bills and legislators and vote, and it's all through the blockchain encryption. So there are definitely tech solutions to some of these that can be implemented. There are already people building them. That was
Good.
that was in 2018 that they pitched that.
So I think the thing about the things that are being built is we already know a lot of the solutions we need, right? We know, but we need to be able to build them outside of the government. If the government is like funneling all our money away from the right resources, we need to be able to create these things and, you know, create the Power Ranger like conglomerate of all the different parts, right? All these different organizations. I think that's the only way we're going to be strong, right? Is getting like the right nonprofits together, the right things, train within these nonprofits some of the strategies that we want to implement into our government, such as democracy dollars, such as ranked choice voting. We can practice these things within our own organizations that we build, right? But if we don't do that, people are going to like, yeah, that's a great idea, but I don't know how to do it. I don't want to learn something new. Yeah.
I
Right.
think that would be also pretty good to find a way to make activism a more appealing pastime to people. Because at the moment, I feel like a lot of people think that activism is just wasting your time in a lot of ways. And
And it feels that way sometimes.
and we need to find a way to make activism either more fun or more appealing at a base level in order to get more people
Well,
active. I am
and
going
I
to take
think
a
that
minute
that
here for a break. I got to go grab a drink.
Okay.
I think that speaks, Mia, to what I was saying about the spectacle, right? So, like the challenge is the media, and how do we get out there? How do we get people attracted to our spectacle, which is a unifying, like in the end, instead of doing the deceptive tactics that we were taught as we do door to door campaign canvassing, right? Instead of that, let's just have the open party celebration of come, let's talk about solutions. Let's make things happen. Let's listen to people who are willing to lead us. Let's get those people on the ballot. Here, sign this petition. Like, and this is where I'm going back to this idea of Chautauqua. And we talked about this last night during the humanity hang, because I had originally tapped into game night and you guys are playing a game, whatever. So I popped over on the other side to the humanity hang, and I ended up talking with people until almost midnight last night. And so, you all know that I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a pastor. I'm not ordained, although that was a serious consideration before I went the more secular route of social work, because at the time I was a Buddhist. And this is what I wrote. I'm going to take the mic for just a minute and share what I wrote. This is on my Patreon. It's public. Anybody can go see it. And these are my thoughts right now in terms of how do we push forward this humanity first agenda. And I have a cure for peace. And it's inspired by the Peace Pilgrim. Read the truth of your pain and suffering. Experience it with your mouth. Sound out the words describing your pain as if sounding them out is the cure. And that's notes from a poet written by me last year, or actually in 2019. We have come to a time that was inevitable, and most of us knew it, felt it, and have lived with the anxiety of anticipation of its coming. We have a rampant pandemic that has killed over 250,000 Americans, and it's not over. We have millions of citizens jobless, starving, without medicine, without help. We have people so fearful and distrusting of our political leadership that they stormed our nation's capital, and 5 people died as a result. We spent several months in protest for Black lives as a result of rampant police brutality against them. On the whole, people feel frightened and isolated. We've been abandoned by the institutions we were taught belong to us as our birthright as citizens for protection from terrorists, foreign and domestic. But our domestic landscape is post-apocalyptic. Our people are strung out after being strung along for too long. We have wasted too many years waiting for a cure for cancer, the cancer that eats at all of our souls. Where is God in all this? We've been waiting for the second coming, but the second coming is never enough. We would need a third and a fourth, and it will never be enough because we need to do the hard work ourselves. A woman named Peace Pilgrim spent the last 28 years of her life walking across North America, including the entire length of the Appalachian Trail in one season, with nothing but the clothes on her back and the contents of her pockets. She was Christ's disciple who spoke to everyone she met about how to achieve peace here on earth. And we need a world of peace. And those of us who are hurting and lost need to find themselves. And we can't get through this without creating space inside us for peace. And we don't have to walk over 25,000 miles on foot to find it. The world can change overnight if we could all sit or walk quietly, let the simmering cauldron of poison within us simmer down until the poison takes up virtually no space, and the smell of it no longer makes us turn away from the peace that we have inside. And this is a cure. So then I've attached on that post, her website is peacepilgrim.org. So her publications are available for free, anyone to read. There's a 3-page PDF that's beautiful. And it describes things that most, at least people who've studied Buddhism, they understand the principles. They're Buddhist principles. They're Christian principles. These are principles that have inspired people for millennia, but it's something that we have increasingly moved away from as we've gotten more into a digital environment and more into a media environment and more into an entertainment environment. And the truth of the matter is every single thing on TV is an advertisement, even the news, and it always has been. And there were journalists back in the day when TV became a thing, and I'm thinking of Edward Murrow, right? That told us that this is the last bastion. If we allow our media to become a consumer item, we will lose democracy, and that's exactly what's happened. And we can take it back. And fortunately, we have this tool right now, but they're trying to take that from us too. So this is where I think it is about leaving our houses sometimes and finding the other people who look like us. And I don't mean it by the exterior, I mean it by the interior, who look like us, who are able to sit in peace. And so it doesn't matter, okay, you're addicted to meth, I can be your friend through that. You have to let me in though. And the easiest way to do that is we can sit here quietly for as long as we need to, until you stop feeling like you're on your own. And that's what every social worker does. It's what every therapist does. It's what every friend does with their friend. It's usually what parents do with their children as we're raising our kids. And hopefully it's what children are doing for their parents as their parents are leaving this body at the end of their lives. But that is not what we're doing in this society. And those are the things that scare me the most. And the politics comes second to that for me. Which is why my career ended up being in social work, where I couldn't support myself.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So this past summer, I was in LA working for a congressional campaign, and I got to organizing with Ground Game LA, and I was able to see like what they were doing to, I guess, build up, stronger communities, and also build political power on top of that. So when the pandemic started, they stood up a mutual aid organization in LA, and they got tons of money, and they were doing lots of like support to communities, and then after that, they were doing lots of outreach and making sure, like, fundamentally, that it's all about making sure our communities are taken care of, and that we are doing the ones that are taking care of them, not like the government. So basically anarchism. I mean, that's really what anarchism is, like us taking care of ourselves. And the foundation of anarchism is a strong community, like how we help each other, right? And so from there, I mean, just talking about what Mia was referring to earlier, like trying to make activism fun. And like I really feel at home with Ground Game LA, even though I'm not based in LA anymore. But they are my activist family because I built so many relationships there, and it's just and I barely met any of them in person. It was all done over Zoom. But the things that they were doing, the networks that they were creating with each other, and there were a lot of comedians and actors
And
involved, so it was
Skillshare,
also fun in that way. I'm sorry.
the Skillshare, the teaching each other educational tools in order to actually do actionable items. I think that's what I loved about Ground Game is they weren't just like talking, right? They were doing, and that was beautiful. And there are a lot of groups that do, right? But like, it's hard to find your tribe, So like, do you think it would benefit society to have more Ground Game chapters?
Oh, absolutely. But of course, it would be tailored to that specific community and their needs. Um, I think I lost my train of thought here for a second. But yeah, just and it's not just about like, and in taking care of each other, we also need to educate each other and build political power. So another thing that they're doing is creating these education series. I think it's called like they want to onboard people new to LA politics. So telling them how the city council works, telling them how the neighborhood council system works, just like things that people can get involved with, and educating them, and also most importantly, how is it relevant to you and your daily life? So that's kind of where canvassing comes in, and like talking with people about it. So it's like seeing what our political system is, like getting educated, and then seeing how we can get involved, like what is the relevance to yourself and your communities, and just activating people so that they're active on a consistent basis. And the thing is, we don't need everyone to go 100% all the time. Like, sure, like a few people, like, like myself, I'm able to, fly down to Georgia and do canvassing there full time for a couple months. I'm able to do that, but not everyone can. And so just figuring out, what is it, like a way to become involved where you're able to. So whether it's making calls, writing letters, making art, like whatever your skill share or whatever your skill set, be able to contribute in that way. Because when we're all doing it together, you don't need to push very hard, right? So instead of one or two people pushing with all their might, it's like millions of people pushing just a little bit and making movement.
You saying all this, in my mind, I'm just like, man, all of these amazing people need to work together and all this other stuff, right? And meet each other, network with each other. And it's just, that's part of the YangGang, right? But there's an activism, like people need to activate, right? There needs to be that spark, right? And I think Yang provided that spark, right? And a lot of people are like waiting in the wings for Yang to do something, And it's just like, okay, yes, but we are the cavalry, right? If we can come to the conclusion that maybe Yang already came to, we could also be the leaders, right? We could also mobilize our own people. We could also make sure that people are getting fed, do all these things, right? But part of the problem is resources, right? That tends to be the biggest problem in any of these like endeavors. So I mean, but like, we had cavemen, right? Cavemen figured stuff out. It wasn't as complicated. There wasn't all these moving parts like there were. But I mean, if they could start there, we can too, right? We can evolve just like the caveman, kind of, At least that's in my mind how it comes out.
Yeah, I know one thing I've noticed with the YangGang is sometimes they make things a little too complicated. So, or it's like that's a great idea. It's just a lot of moving parts, and I don't think it's going to fit within the timeline. And I don't know, it almost seems like a distraction sometimes. So, above all, it's about relationship building. Because another great thing about traveling to Georgia is meeting up with people that I haven't seen since Iowa, and seeing what they've been up to, and just reinforcing those connections, and and keeping in contact with them with projects down the line, and figuring out who some of the key players are, and just creating that network of people who are really active and moving, but but not forgetting about people who are at home and, and they should stay at home, because it's not, not everybody is able to take those risks, right? So being mindful of what everybody's part to play is. And it's not like anyone is more important than the other, because we all need each other. But yeah, it feels like we just need to focus more on the fundamentals of, talking together and coordinating and acting in ways that are manageable. I mean, I heard some people talking about creating an app, and it's like, no, timetable's not going to work on that. I mean, I love your enthusiasm, but but let's focus on something that's a little more manageable and doable.
The app builders are very important. They do need to exist, right? But they're on a different timeline than some of us, right? We're all different types of plants within the garden, if you will, right? We all have a different purpose within the ecosystem, right? And some of our things might take longer, but they might not blow over in a storm either, And some of it bears fruit, but some of it's just meant to pollinate, right? And make sure that like the little guys are taken care of. And so like it might not solve the problem now, but we need to make sure that we are encouraging people who want to go that path. We just have, if we need to fill a role, we have to scout someone else, right? If that's their dream and vision, they have passion that way. Let's not squander that, not squish it, not like, oh, that's not, like, I think it's important to uplift and encourage, especially if in the long run it could help. Because like when I first got involved in the YangGang, they're like, well, you got all these great ideas, it doesn't work on a timeline. I'm like, okay, sure, I agree, right? I needed to hear that. That was beneficial for me to help focus a little bit, right? But it was very demoralizing and actually made me want to do less, right? That wasn't great. And I think redirection of energies is also healthy, right? But maybe the roles we think these people should play are not the roles they were meant to play, right? So they need to find that themselves. I think gentle nudges and encouragement is very beneficial too, but maybe they just need different resources sent their way, right? Especially if we've done some of the scouting, be like, oh, I know this person, let me send them your way. And that's how real networking happens. And I don't need to explain that to you. I'm sure you've been well versed in networking.
But yeah, no, yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, I'm just thinking specifically with the couple projects that are coming up, like with Georgia, and people coming up with these grand ideas, which great, but it's like we need, like, what we really need is to mobilize people quickly and en masse to make that happen. And also I've been hearing some fantastical projects for a potential, mayor's race that might be coming up. And it's like, even if it were to be executed, there's still a matter of like, does it turn out votes? And yeah, just like keeping our eye on the prize, and yeah, having some fun things to generate excitement, that is great. But those are not the fundamentals. And I feel like there needs to be like a, prioritization of some of the projects that people do. So yes, there are these specialists, and yes, there's really exciting things. But keeping in mind is like, this is not the basic strategy. This is an additional thing.
Nothing is more effective than actual people contacting other actual people in these
Yes.
times.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
I mean,
there's nothing more effective than getting to know somebody face to face and having a conversation. So if you don't need to learn a new skill set for that either, if you just happen to like Yang, you could go out, you could knock on doors, and you could talk about him, or you could make calls. That's it.
DMing people is also a strong way to actually get people's response, right? Like I think direct messages, right? And like also, I felt like when I met the YangGang, I had this set of friends that was pre-YangGang, right? And then I had the YangGang. And it was this incredible activated group of people, right? They all love everything. But these people are now annoyed hearing it over and over again, right? I don't know how to make these people meet these people. But if I could collide these groups together, that'd be very beneficial for me. The problem is we have a pandemic. How does one merge these groups together, right? And, we used to have parties to do this kind of shit, right? But now we have a global pandemic. We can't mix social networks like we used to, right? We can't be like, oh, here's my event. Come on, right? But the other thing is the YangGang, we're all over the United States, but maybe some of the stronger players are not in the same state, right? So we have to have these digital hangs, right? And we do. Mia, you are a definite catalyst to making some of this stuff work, right? But that's still YangGang. We individually need to find our individual friends and have our own hangs with our own YangGang and normal, or like I say normal, you know what I'm trying to say, right? Like average citizens and activists. They're a different breed of people, but they could inspire. And maybe these two are musicians and they just made the best thing possible because they wanted their kid to survive. And they're like, I want my kid to survive. Why don't we make this beautiful passion project to bring awareness to people on survival ways, right? And it's stuff like that. We honestly have to reach into our family networks. We have to reach into our friend networks and figure out a way to merge the groups. That's the thing. And this podcast allows for some of that, right? We've had on family members and friends and stuff. And it's a good introductory because that's the first experience some of these normal citizens have had first exposure to even a podcast, first exposure to a video camera, right? My grandma and my mom are doing a Bible study now. It's a fucking adorable, okay, right? It's so adorable. And they're inspiring people, right? But their network of people is not my network of people, right? But, we still have family calls on Sunday where I can still be a normal human with my family and be like, oh, what are you guys up to? What have you done to help people? How can I use that over here? Because they do a lot of community service. I've been inspired most of my life by them, right? So I don't know. How if you guys have ideas on how to merge these groups, because I'm not religious. Very religious.
You don't have to merge them. You don't have to merge them necessarily. You can just work them where they're at. So when I was organizing with Ground Game LA, they're very much from the Bernie camp. That's where they got started. And they didn't really think too much about universal basic income. But with me just working alongside them for however long and just getting to know them, and being involved with what they're doing, I just, they knew that I was a UBI activist, but I didn't push it. Right. It was only when somebody started talking about issues canvassing for direct cash relief where I'm like, hey, I know a little something about that. And I'd already created that level of trust within the group that they would actually listen to me. Right. So it's not so much about merging groups together. It's more like activating certain people who are open to the idea and having them reach their networks. So propagating it out and decentralizing it. So you don't necessarily need to be in that Bible study and be able to talk to them about universal basic income or humanity first policies, but maybe the people who are involved in that Bible study, if you are able to talk to them about some of the concepts and they're on board with it, then
it's so hard to get my family on board with universal basic income, though. That's the problem, and I don't know how to do it. If I get my family on board, dude, the networks my family has for good deeds would be so powerful. But I can't get the messaging there. I just can't. They won't hear it from me, right? I need them to meet people I know who can say things that can help, at least open up to the idea. I'm not trying to change their perspectives. I'm not trying to manipulate them, but I'm trying to make them aware of a solution that might actually work.
I'll volunteer to participate in their Bible study.
Oh my gosh.
I'm for real. I'll sit in on Bible study and I'll just let God do what God does.
You know what? I will 100% link you up with my family.
Do it. I mean, I'm disabled. I ain't going anywhere. That's the truth. I mean, I've been battling this idea of I want to go back to DC because I spent a month there. I was on the ground the whole time. I was doing protests. I was making friends. I still have connections, and shit's going down. And I feel ownership over our nation's capital. I mean, those buildings were a comfort to me in a time that I was hurting for all kinds of other reasons other than politics, right? And this was a place of comfort and inspiration for me. And so I feel an allegiance. But at the same time, the practical matter is, oh, that's a hot fucking mess, and it's not my mess.
Mhm.
Like, it's, and again, sorry for the language, but I mean, the truth is the truth. This is, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
We can curse here if there's
Real
any
quick.
question about it, guys. It's fine.
Real quick, I wanted to extend a hello from Manny. You met him last night at the Humanity Hangs. He wanted to say hi to you, Kai, and me too. Hi, Manny.
Thanks for watching,
Thank you.
Manny.
It was wonderful to talk to Manny.
Manny's a good guy. He's got a lot of interesting things to say and a lot of interesting stories to share. But we can return to conversation. I just wanted to pass along the hello.
Sure.
And I love the idea of, we talked about this during the Humanity Hangs. This idea of Chautauqua, if you're not familiar, is a civic. It's like a festival of civic engagement, and it's something I think would be very easy to do virtually.
Is it an acronym?
But it's Chautauqua.
Yeah.
Spell it, please.
What's the origin of that word?
It's an Indian word, and
Okay,
it's
that
based.
was my
I
second
think
guess.
the first one was held in Chautauqua, New York.
Yep, that
And
makes sense.
so it's CHAUTAUQUA, I think.
I tried writing it down. I was not anywhere near that. Can we try it one more time?
Huh?
CHAU. Let me make sure I'm spelling it right. Let me get my phone out.
Well, I was like
It's-
SHIT. Chautauqua.
Put the correct spelling in the chat in the YouTube channel.
Oh, the chat. Oh, I'll type it in the live stream chat channel.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can I put it in there?
Yeah.
sure.
What do I do? Do I just type it in there?
I'll read it aloud.
do
Someone
exclamation
should read it aloud because
credit.
there is an audio only audience. So someone should read it aloud.
You can read it once he's typed it, and then it'll.
I'll read it aloud
like,
myself. All right.
There you go. There we
you
go.
know.
Also, during this little bit of chaos, Hannah, Kim is in the chat right now, and she says hi to you. She hasn't seen you in a while. Just wanted to give you a hello.
Oh my god, Kim! Oh my gosh. Nice. Yeah, she was my canvassing partner for a few days down
Kim?
in Georgia. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the Kim. Yeah. That's awesome.
I see Moto's taking over Faye's BART duties. Thank you. BART is our SEO robot. So if you would like to contribute at any time, if you're not talking, go into the live stream chat, type !help to get all the commands, and you can log information about yourself or URLs that are relevant to what we're talking about, and they'll be time-stamped in the YouTube and Twitch descriptions when people watch the videos later. So thanks for Moto for not just taking over Faye's BART duties, but also writing BART to my specifications, which is a huge ask. So thank you. While I'm still talking, I want to just quickly address directly something you said, Faye. How can I get like disparate groups together as a matter of course, as a best practice, as a general principle? Just tell people what they can get from each other that they need. Tell people like you need X. This group has it. You guys should get together. It's that simple.
Well, yeah, okay, but see, okay. My family is very unique. We were extremely fractured for a long time due to some trauma and religious pressure. That's a good way to put it, right? And between the trauma and religious pressure, it divided our whole family. Like my mom was married and divorced 4 times, right? That caused a lot of pain. And as her child, I had lots of father figures that were just gone, right? That was traumatizing, right? But now I have multiple families, if you think about it, right? All my siblings are half siblings, so I still would see their family, kind of, not so much these days. But that fracturing was healed when my mom was almost killed by 5 pit bulls attacking her. Okay. So because of that, we were able to like come together again, right? And then we've only recently started mending these things. Like my sister didn't want to talk to my mom for a long time, right? Like and same with my brother. But guess what? We've been doing a lot of personal development work, and now we've made amends with our mom, right? Because we blamed her for a lot. You know, she was only doing the best she could with what she had. I see this now as an adult, right? But as a child, you blame the mom, right? And so because of this fracture, though, I was able to come out more about my life and my authenticity of what it means to be me, right? Which, out of my siblings, I'm probably the only one that's really authentic about my lifestyle choices. The other siblings are still very afraid, okay? And, I mean, they've come to me and told me their things, but I'm not going to go rat them out, But, like, I love and care about them, so I respect that. But because of that, even my mom sees me as a different, like my agenda seems dark or something, like because I'm no longer religious, I'm somehow this black sheep that is trying to corrupt them or something, right? I'm like, no, be you. I don't want you to be me. Please don't. That's not the path for you, right? Like, you do you, boo. But for them, it's hard to grasp, right? Because they were always told, you got to do the thing that you're told to do. And I'm like, do I? I don't think so. I think I'm pretty okay, actually. I feel better this way and less coping mechanisms, happier. But, if that makes you happy, please do it, right? But because of this separation, they don't listen to me. And it's like all the beautiful work I'm doing is not being absorbed at all. They're finally, because I switched my approach to, hey, Mom, how do you do this? Hey, Grandma, how did you guys pull this off? Right? And so I'm just asking them questions, and they're doing the, like, remembering of these beautiful things they've done in their life, and they, like, see that I'm seeking answers and trying to translate it into something, right? So I found a different avenue where it's not just, like, me as the issue, but the actual problems are the issues. Let's talk about those and not me. But like to even get into their group dynamic, I'm not as well received as I would like to, right? I don't know. But I think if I can get other people who are like-minded like them to become their friends, right? They can have those conversations naturally. Where it's not God in every sentence for me, right? I don't actually enjoy every sentence containing the word God because, to me, it means something different, right? But I value their opinions, their viewpoints, and everything else. Who am I to say they're wrong? I got one set of eyeballs on this planet, right? We all could be wrong, but I do notice a lot of people have different interpretations of God, right? It might be the same God, but it's not the same God, right? So that's what's confusing to me. How can you all worship the same person, but it's not the same person, and none of your actions are necessarily in alignment, right?
It's always jarring to interact with someone who routinely, mundanely talks about God's, interactions with them in their daily lives. It's very jarring because it doesn't go with our cultural narrative. And there are kind of two ways that I can read it. There's one, this person sincerely has a very unusual life experience, and they experience God and all these things. Or two, their life is a nonstop performance, and that's very sad and upsetting. So either way, it's alienating. But you know what? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. What does one do?
Always told me that I would feel God's presence, and when I needed him, he'd be there, and that it would be warm and fuzzy, and I'd have this sense of comforting. And every time I went for that, I ended up just talking myself down. And there was very little comfort from any outside source. It was an inside source that ended up being able to help me move on. So I don't really...
Well, that was God speaking through you, is what they'll say.
Yeah, it really wasn't. God wouldn't say some of the things I said. But
Well, so like because I'm a Quaker, that idea of having a very internal experience and a direct relationship with God is the core of what Quakers practice in all the denominations, like all the different fractures. So my particular group, we sit in silent worship, which is the conservative way. That's the tradition. It goes all the way back to George Fox and the original Quakers. But there's the Quakers, the original Quakers anyway, were also huge activists. And that was God pushing for equality, pushing for unity, pushing for people to connect with the thing either inside or outside of us, however your experience of it is, because it's going to be different for everybody. But for, at least for Quakers, for me, it was a very internal experience. That was a path that I've been on since I was a child. And so the external doctrines didn't resonate for me in a way that was comforting, whereas Eastern religion did comfort me. And so the comfort was what I sought. The thing that helped me not be afraid of other people and of the world that I lived in was the thing that I tried to find. And for me personally, I found it by sitting underneath trees like Buddha did. And that's not necessarily the method for somebody else. Somebody else might get it from, I have a friend who's a trucker and he finds that driving on the road. It just is. So I think there are ways that we can speak in languages that are common experiences for all of us, and then we can move from that point forward.
And humanity first is, right?
Faye, Jeremy was wondering what denomination your parents were of religion.
So they're non-denominational, but there was Baptist roots within it. But okay. So I felt the power of the Lord at one point in my life. It felt like a giant weight was lifted off of me. I felt holy, if you will, and it was a very intriguing thing, and it was like the surrender. But as I've been learning about neurology, if you give up control, this weight of the world on you, and you allow someone else to deal with it and you let it go, it's a natural occurrence, okay? But it does feel transformational, and I could see why people would feel the presence of God, right? And like, but watching pagans, watching Christians, watching all these different religious denominations, if you will, viewpoints, it's magical. Whatever it is, and like taken over them. And it's beautiful to see their passion ignite and their fuel of love for God, right?
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wish I had more of that,
It's
but like also...
you hear it when Kaizen speaks, right? And I was going to ask you, Faye, is that the way your parents speak about God? Is that the sort of feeling that they elicit when they talk about God? Or is it different? And if it is different, how so? I think that would be a valuable thing to talk about. Not to put you on the spot. Feel free to pass if this is too invasive.
No, it's okay. Yeah. I love talking about it because I think I need to just talk about it because I think a religion has had a major impact on our society, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's important to talk about, and it's so taboo.
Yeah, like I mean, the politicization of Christianity and the way religion has been conceived of as in America really put me off of religion and spirituality completely for a very long time. Really, to my detriment in some ways. Like faith is a part of the human experience, and I just had such a negative early experience with religion because it just seems like they're just tools of bigotry and control, and often they are, but that doesn't mean there's not a good element there. It's been co-opted is the thing, so it's difficult. Anyway, I'm trailing off here.
To answer your question, okay, so we're gonna go back in time a little bit, okay? before my mom had this transformational moment in her life where she almost died, okay? This is pre-death, pre-almost death, okay? I would have considered her a bad Christian, right? Very, very judgmental, very attacking, very, she had the desire to connect. She just did it very terribly, right? That's the best way to put it. I actually pushed her because I used to be Christian, right? I actually pushed her to be a stronger Christian because I was like, Mom, God, think of it differently, right? And in retrospect, oh well. Okay, but so there were techniques that were very ungodlike in my opinion, right? But like my grandma, she's like, you know what? The problem is we took God out of everything. I was like, okay, well, to me, God is value systems. It's not necessarily an entity, but the value system of your God is what you're trying to emulate, right? So, what are those value systems, and have you ever looked at it, right? And so now they both, my grandma and my mom, live their value systems so much more, right? And it is beautiful to watch. They really do have that energy, and they really do attribute it to God, right? But really, I think they just found alignment with their values and doing better with that. And so they're better at one with themselves, right? Because they're doing something that isn't causing a coping mechanism, essentially. So, my thoughts on that.
Yeah, so before I talk about my history with religion, I just wanted to acknowledge that I was not speaking to the right Kim. It was actually Kimberly in the chat, who I know is very active, and she is amazing and a lovely human. And I just want to say a proper hello to Kimberly. Hi. So yeah, I grew up. So my dad's a pastor, so that's
okay.
a whole can of worms. And for me, I felt that religion was definitely like a way to control, because there was like specific things that you need to do, things that you need to abstain from, and it was just really oppressive to me. It's like I never really got it, and I've I'm not religious at all in that sense, and my parents don't talk to me about religion anymore. So I think we've come to like a little impasse on that. And I found like within the past year, I feel like, geez, I don't know if it's my spirituality or if it's an addiction, but I just love organizing in groups with people. So the very beginning of the year, like I was with the sorority and just doing all these like caucus support operations. Yeah. And then like when I was in LA working on the congressional campaign, that was magical. And then organizing with Ground Game LA, and then now going down to Georgia and meeting up again with all these organizers from YangGang that I haven't seen in months. I mean, I love that energy. I love just working together, and especially towards a common goal. And that's the spirituality I found, I guess. And yeah, it's hard to distinguish from addiction though, because there was that high that I recognize from,
No,
from
addiction
when I
would
had to
be
go to retreats and prayer groups.
I say don't pathologize things that are not harmful to us, right? So this is not an addiction until it's harming you.
I am spending so last year I've only spent about 4 months at home away from my spouse and away from like my hometown, and like kind of shirking all my other responsibilities, I guess. So in a way, I don't know, maybe
if it makes you happy, if this is how you live in alignment with your values, then there's really not going to be any compromising on it. If doing those other things is just going to make you unhappy, I don't know. Maybe that's a reductionist take. Who knows? But that's
all I can tell you is that when I have the
sharing.
experience of God telling me to do things, it is not always pleasant.
Yeah.
It's stuff that it's doing the hard work within myself, and doing the hard work in my relationships with the world. So, it's like with my leg being injured. It's taken a lot of hard work, and I have not enjoyed it. And I know now that the thing that is sustaining me through that is my creator. That's the only way that I can understand how I can keep going when the true me The me that I've grown up with is miserable and wants to curl up in a ball and die because it sucks every single moment. And I think that is an experience that a lot of people can relate to, with or without the injury. I think a lot of people's souls are injured like that.
Yeah.
So when it, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I think I do understand why you were equating your experience to one of faith with a sort of divine element to it, Hannah. Like, a faith in people is faith. If you are moved by your belief that the people you're working with are good and will succeed, that's faith. And it is fundamentally similar to a religious experience, I think, for some. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I totally see it. Although I feel like one big difference is that there's less delusion, I guess, or less. Yeah, because there's that toxic positivity to religion sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and when working with real life people in a stressful setting, you really get to know people and their weaknesses and also your own, and get to deal with people as they are. And so that's a big lesson that I've learned throughout this year working with people. It's not discounting people because of their weaknesses, but just knowing it. And I have lots of people where I'm like, I would be really mad at them for something that they did, but it's like family though. It's like, I love you to death, but man, I hate you right now. Or that was a really fucked up thing that you did. And I've had to deal with a decent amount of that this year.
For you though. Okay, so with this whole religious talk and this community building and networking and working together that you're doing, Hannah, like there's this thing I stumbled upon. It was called Sunday Assembly. It was like church for the non-religious, right? It had music, it had learning things about your life and things like dirt. We were all dirt. Okay, and we will return to dirt. Blah blah blah. Right, and that was one of the lessons. Others were like, this is how to do a community garden. Right, it was like church with all the beautiful community, but it wasn't church. Right, there's no like hyper focus on this religious figure. Do you think that is something that you could help create? I feel like in a lot of ways you could have this like assembly of people to like celebrate and party, but also be activism and knowledgeable and blah blah blah. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think there's a
absolutely.
couple attempts to do that for like humanist parties and such too. Like there's people's I can't remember the name of the places. I'm gonna have to look it up now after this. But there are some humanist parties that try to take the spiritual celebration and remove the dogma from it actively.
We have a quite large secular assembly like what you're describing, Faye, here in Kansas City called Oasis, and we are not the only city that has an Oasis congregation. It's Church for Atheists. It's a secular church. They do everything that a church would normally do. They have music and lectures, and it's great. And they meet regularly. I mean, they meet every Sunday. I mean, it's just like church. There's just not the presence of, and I'm not going to say there's not the presence of God. I'm going to say that the focus isn't on any part of that. It is on all the other stuff.
Not left, not right, but forward, essentially, right? Not religious, not atheist, but forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I've met some of the most wonderful Christians, and they go to Oasis because they've been booted from their home churches, their home congregations, because they're saying things like, science is real, guys, like evolution's a thing. And we're not going to deny it, and we're not going to go along with whatever hierarchy is trying to tell me to distance myself from gays, distance myself from trans people, distance myself from immigrants. What the hell is wrong with you people? This isn't Christianity. Have you been reading your book? And it's all about these weird hierarchical, it's feudalism. The way the structures are built, it's all the same chart. Whether you're looking at a corporate chart or a church chart or whatever, it's still the feudalist system. And that's where I say, but our founding documents and a whole bunch of other stuff that's happened post-Enlightenment, right, says we don't need to function like that anymore. We don't need to have a hierarchy. We can all be equal participants. It's okay, guys. It's okay.
So something that I think is an inevitable human need is to gather in a church-like setting. I feel like we need these celebrations. You know, we love festivals. Why do we love festivals? Okay, it's a gathering. It's a shared experience. It's a collective experience, right? And when you have these collective experiences, you have something to talk about. You can resonate with people. It's just like if you went to a musical like concert and you had an experience, right? And then you can tell when someone else has had that, or even just like, haha, are you envious? You know, people do that, whatever, it's fine. But like, you know, it's something, even just like movies, going to the movies, right? You have this collective experience of like these emotions that you went on the ride with, right? And you can talk about it, and you can talk about life through this new language you've developed together because you both experienced it. So I think it's actually very humanist that we do have these experiences. But if the focus is God and not activism, it pulls away from real change that we need in our society.
I have read a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is about complex post-traumatic stress disorder or developmental
What's it
stress
called?
disorder. The book is titled The Body Keeps the Score, and the author is Bessel van der Kolk, who comes out of the trauma center in Boston. He is a worldwide expert on trauma. And in that book, he talks about how our culture has moved away from the regular ritual, the festival aspect, both of celebrating loss and gain. So when soldiers would come back from battle, or when warriors would return to the tribe from battle, there was always a celebration. There was always drumming, which helps reset our actual physical being. Drumming does. And so there were these big celebrations, festivals, and mourning where we took time off as a group to mourn losses, to take a break and to do the things, the dancing, the movement, the singing, the drumming. And we've disconnected from all of those rituals for the most part because we've replaced it with television. We've replaced it with the radio. And those things, the physical act of doing them, helps heal our trauma so we can be less reactive and more planful. So these are things where, you know, and when I was in DC in 2019, they had the temple from Burning Man inside the museum that's right there next to the White House. And I can't remember the name of the museum right now. I'm sorry. But I went in and I thought, well, there's something like Burning Man has never been about politics. But this is something that that easily can be turned into a civic engagement thing where we can burn in effigy all the things that are wrong and celebrate all the things that are good. And just the act of doing that helps us be able to generate the change. It's
Hearing you talk about that actually makes me think of a ritual. I went to a pagan festival at one point, right? And one of the things they did is they had this cloth, and on that cloth, you wanted to promise yourself something. It was a commitment cloth, I think is what they called it, right? And you write something on it, and you keep it on your wrist until the end of the festival, right? And if you lose it, you lose it, right? But like at the end of the festival, you burn them, right? And everyone goes around the fire, and there's this big celebration. But there's also this time of silence before that even happened, right? So like it started, it was beautiful. So it started, they had one fire, right? And everyone got these little metal tins, and there's rice at the bottom, so you don't like burn yourself or whatever, right? Okay. But they'd have a tiny little candle. And so these people, would light a stick, and they started lighting all these other people's fires from the same fire, right? So we're all connected through this one flame, right? And I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. But then everyone walks through the forest in silence, right? To then go to where this man-made water circle lake thing, right? And everyone just individually put it around there, right? And then like once that, it was like an hour of silence of just people just like having this moment, right? And they had their little ceremony thing, but at the end of it, everyone was like dancing around the fire, like burning their commitment cloths, and it really, I felt the power of that, right? And it was just beautiful because some people were committing to loving themselves or telling the truth or like something. And just the act of a ritual like this, doesn't matter if you're religious or not, the things happening within your brain are fucking important. It is.
Symbolism and group connection are very powerful on the psyche, yeah. Like you can influence a person's behavior directly by changing their environment. So, of course, yeah, like being around people is going to give you a charge, and having a shared experience is going to help reinforce that feeling. It's an amazing thing that we evolved to be able to work together in spite of having so many differences. We might have moved past some aspects of it, but I think that we do still need to find a way to build those same communities.
Like another ritual that they had was like, okay, usually they have, this big dome, right? It's made out of PVC pipe, and they put a parachute over it. Okay, well, the parachute rotted, so we had to scramble to get something else there, right? But anyway, inside this was supposed to be like they wanted to heal sexual trauma in people, right? And there was this ritual where you grab salt out of a bowl or whatever, right? And there was water taken from that lake thing that I was talking about earlier, right? And so essentially you hold on to it and you put all the pains and everything into it, right? And it eventually gets all moist, right? Your hand gets sweaty, and but you're able to wash your hands clean of it, at the end of it. And then like, so they put all that salt water, they purify it through the moon, right? And then like they put it back into the water to cleanse, like we are cleansed, and it's just a symbolism, right? But also people were able to finally talk about their sexual trauma. Men for the first time in their lives were like, you know what? Yeah, it happened to me. Another guy, I did it. Right? That's what they said, right? And finally, and they got comfort and acceptance, right? And like, wow, that must have been really hard to stay here. But like, it's these moments where we gather and collectively accept each other for all the flaws that we are. And if you're doing it symbolically, then like that memory has so much more power, right? Because you can recall that memory easier if you made a show of it. Just saying. And mindfulness.
And they're very highly influential events too on like younger people as well. So if you're trying to shape a mind, these kinds of rituals definitely help with that. It's the same as if you are watching Sesame Street all the time, you're going to come out with songs that tell you about the ABCs and learning. If you go to church, you're going to come out with songs that tell you about God. If you go to something more like that, you're going to come out with songs that tell you about human empowerment and healing and self-actualization. We program children with whatever we decide to imprint them with religiously.
So in thinking of religious traditions of resistance, one of the most important ones is the vigil. And so when I think of a visible action that we can do now that will signal to anybody that's curious, it's the light in the window. Just keep it going. Keep it going until we achieve what we're out to achieve, which is, the removal of the barriers that stand between us and an empowerment of all of our people to reach their maximum freedom. And our platform on the political end is the UBI. But ultimately, the thing that's driving us is the desire for equality for everybody. And not everyone shares that value. So I think one of the ways to get through is to do, when we've seen it with ribbons on shirts and stuff, and I don't think that's a shitty idea. I think a lot of the causes have kind of been, what are you really doing? You're not really doing anything. But when after the Pulse massacre, people were wearing ribbons to let people know that they're allies. And now we've made so much progress just from that. Now same-sex couples can get married, and that's federal law, and that's not going to go away. The states can't take it away. They can try, but they're not going to, because that's not how those documents are written. So, I think that there are very much in things we can do. Things that we can do that are visible, that are outward, that are also not aggressive, that aren't going to put people off. If people aren't clued in, they're not going to notice. And I noticed that when I was in DC too. I was on the train and I had the Democratic Socialist Antifa badge on my vest. And the guy standing across from me noticed my badge. He's like, "You going to the protest?" We had this conversation. And to this day, he and I still message each other. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that we can find these little clues in each other to stay connected. But I kind of feel like Yang started the swell of us being able to all get together under humanity first principles. It's just so open. The way that Occupy was so very open. And if it weren't for a pandemic, I kind of feel like Occupy would be running again. Actually, we did have another Occupy camp here as part of Black Lives Matter and the injustices specifically with our housing issues here in Kansas City and what people are doing to our homeless. So, it's there. To me, it's everything's there. People are already doing it, but we aren't unified the way that we were unified behind Gandhi, the way the Indians were unified behind Gandhi when he was doing his, work, and not the way that people were unified behind MLK either. And so this is where it's like, how can we do this without that leader? And I think that's the key to me.
But that's a little bit of revisionist history, though, because people were not unified under MLK. And I believe Gandhi was also a controversial figure, because when you're in the thick of it, fighting for equality and justice is highly controversial. It's only in retrospect with the way that we have changed and continued that work that it's now commonplace, or it's like, yeah, it was a great idea. It's like, yeah, he was right all along, but in the time it was not. So even with LGBTQ rights, it really started with the Stonewall riots and with a trans woman throwing a brick. And that was very violent and very bloody. And now, you can show solidarity with a ribbon, but it started with the hard, violent work. And so I don't think we should discount that. So right now with all these, protesting and riots that get out of hand because, well, I'm sorry, the police escalated those. We can't say, no, that's the wrong way to go about it. In many cases, it's the only way to start it. And the only way that we can get to a place where it's calmer and more acceptable is because a lot of people put their bodies on the line in the first place. So I just want to add that context.
That's
what is the fallout of a civil war? What is the fallout? Sorry, Mia.
Oh, well, I just wanted to say real quick, we've got about 10 minutes left, so we should probably wrap the conversation up here pretty quick and start doing outros soon. But ask your question first.
Can I
Ian.
also just bother everyone who hasn't, just type !credit and then your contact information or anything you want in the text for the video for this?
Thank you for the reminder.
No problem.
I mean, I am curious though. Does anyone know the fallout of a civil war? I just like, or what should we anticipate as the next few steps? Because I'm afraid that's where we're heading.
I mean,
Or
what is,
how could we
it really depends on the nature of the civil war you're anticipating.
I also don't think you can't really recreate the 19th century Civil War now. The distribution of people in politics is very different. That's not to say we couldn't get a civil war, but I think it would look a lot more like some of the civil wars you see in like other parts of the world right now, where it's not like a big like battle lines drawn, army versus army, but more of like a kind of asymmetrical, like small groups versus small groups, while the government doesn't really fall. It just kind of becomes irrelevant in some areas. I think if it's going to happen, it would probably happen something like that.
So it's pointless.
Well, no, I think that we're already experiencing it. I think it's an economic war. I think our civil war is what's happening through this pandemic, where people are going to be are going to be forced out onto the streets. And then what happens? They're going to spread COVID. They're going to get sicker. I mean, it's only going to get worse at the point that people are on the streets because they literally have nowhere else to go. So this is, I mean, again, this is going to be that tension. And then at the point that people start trespassing, then the police will come. So it's not, it very much is about continuing these efforts of defund the police, change the systems, do it quickly. And sometimes it does mean that we're going to have to put our bodies on the line, that it is going to be violent, but we can't go into it thinking that violence is going to solve the problem, because it's not. We're not going to win against the government when it comes to guns. It doesn't matter how well you've prepped. It doesn't matter how well you've prepped, because they've also allowed private militias to outfit themselves. And if y'all think that we're going to be able to like storm rich people's houses, it's not going to happen. We're going to get tased. We're going to get hurt. I don't have answers. I have ideas.
Well, we should probably end on that note. Humanity first, guys. Humanity first.
Don't get tased. That's also another good tagline. Don't get tased, folks. Be careful not to get tased.
Don't
If
get
you
tased.
can.
Do you want to start, Mia, with your outro?
Sure. My name is Mia Dunford. I do Humanity Hangs on Tuesdays and Fridays. I am the co-lead there now, along with Brian Calloway, who nobody else here knows, I don't think. Well, maybe Hannah. Oh, okay. I do this. Obviously, I'm coming every day this week so far, so that's fun. And we're going to be doing a Sims 4 social stream on Sunday for 2 hours, where I will be running around with our little sim friend Frida. Frida Dividend, I think we called her. And giving away simoleons for everyone. And on Monday, I am going to be doing, I put it in the live stream chat, the congressional pressure with basic income movement. They're doing a phone banking party, and it's going to be a lot of fun to tell them to give us money. So I hope you all join us in telling people to give us money, because we need money and we want money. And that's the only way they'll listen, is if we're screaming it in their faces. So pick up a phone and join us on Monday. That's it for me. Who wants to go next?
Yeah.
Oh.
Who wants to go next?
Oh, I said Kai, but maybe it sounded like I said I.
I can do it. No,
Okay.
I'll do it.
Okay.
My name is Kaizen KC. That's at KAIZENKC on Twitter, Patreon, and Cash App. And I'm based in the Quaker Meeting House in the heart of Kansas City, Missouri. And I'm pro UBI and pro humanity first values.
Are we just not good at this without Fake Coup here? She is the only one who can
Okay,
MC
that's
this
fine.
process.
I'll start forcing people myself.
Thank you.
Faye, the other Faye, who's not the credit forcer. Go.
Yeah.
Oh, I was trying to let Hannah go, but okay, I'll just go. I'll go. Okay. So my name's Faye Doney. If you want to follow me on Twitch, Twitter, or TikTok, my username is Tisdoney. Tisdoney. I just started a Minecraft account and I'm learning how to do that thing of like streaming and stuff. So maybe one day I'll be a gamer too, guys. And let's see, I'm still working on the universal basic income pilot, but it's been a lot of research, learning curve for me because problems seem to be a little more hidden than I originally thought, right? But if you want to follow me on that journey, just find my social media platforms. If you want to crowdfund grassroots for me, my Patreon is /Faydoney, FAYEDONEY. Unfortunately, I do not give out rewards, but you know what? The story's worth it, guys. Help fund the action like a little coin machine, and look, the character does the things. It's great. I'm your video game.
Does everyone here have a Patreon?
Yeah.
We do, don't we? It's just the fucking
Oh,
future.
not Hannah. What? Not Hannah.
All right,
Not
well,
Hannah. But you can access my
out there
Patreon
doing
through
real
my
walking around physical things, you should get a Patreon. People will pay you.
Yeah. What did you say?
Oh, I just said my my Patreon you can access through my Twitter profile. It's as listed as my webpage. Just in case anybody wants to give me money. I like money. I don't have a lot of it. It goes way too fast.
Same with me.
Should we have Hannah sign out now?
Yes,
Yeah,
Hannah should
I'll
go
go
next.
next. Yeah, hi, my name is Hannah One. I am co-founder of Testify for UBI Project. I'm a satellite member of Ground Game LA. I'm a citizen advocate for UBI, the arts, and Asian American representation. I'm resident of the Seattle anarchist jurisdiction and recent victor of the Georgia Senate races. So I don't have a Patreon. I'm cool with that. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram on NowHannah1. That's just my name forwards and backwards. So, yeah, it was cool being here. Thanks.
Thank you, Hannah. It's always great to talk to you.
That leaves Shoto or Moto or Shael. I was going to call you Shoto.
Shoto.
That's your couple name.
Ken, Ryu, Akuma.
Let's do Moto.
That's our huge
Shael
one.
can sign out.
I am Moto. I am at MotoMotes. That's MOTO_MOTES on the Twitters.
Thank you. That's it.
All right, Shael.
On my Twitter is Shael Riley, SHAEL RILEY. My Patreon is The Grammar Club. It has nothing to do with politics. It is my music production group. But if you're curious, check it out. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. This was great. We'll see you again soon. We'll be back tomorrow, 3 to 5, I think. Or is it 2 to 4 tomorrow? It's 2 to 4 tomorrow, Eastern. Okay. Good night, everybody. Goodbye.